Hi everyone, I'm Alan Adams. I'm with the Dean College School of Business, and I'm here to talk to you about gaining basic proficiency in Microsoft Excel. Let me talk about badges for a moment, badges and a badging program. Dean College is embarking on a program to award badges. Badges, as you know, are symbols of achievement and accomplishment as you attain some basic levels and move on to the more advanced levels. We intend to do that in many programs that we're going to use to enrich you here at Dean College. We're starting with Excel. We will move on to other areas and we'll announce those as we go. Badges, as you know, I'll tell you what, let's analogize them, let's compare them to the martial arts. If you know anything about the martial arts, or if you've seen a Steven Seagal or Ralph Macchio movie, you know that as you move up through the ranks of the martial arts, you're rewarded as you hit certain ranks with a belt of a different color, and you move up eventually with enough mastery to the coveted black belt. Okay? In industry, they do something similar. If you work for a company like General Electric and you learn about their quality programs, they'll award you a belt. And that belt indicates that you have mastery. Now, mastery, like you receive with a badge here at Dean College, like you receive at General Electric, all of that adds to your value to an employer. It enhances your resume and essentially makes you more valuable to your employer. That's a very desirable position to be in. So here at Dean College, we intend to do that. Now, we're going to start with Excel. Microsoft Excel is part of the, we call it the big three: Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, and Microsoft Excel. Many of our students have indicated that they're very comfortable with Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint, at least with the basics. They've expressed to us that they don't necessarily feel the same way with Excel. And that's unfortunate because Excel, in my opinion at least, is the most powerful potentially of the three, and yet it's amazingly easy to learn. Our partners on the outside, potential internship sponsors and hirers, have indicated that they expect Dean College students to come to them with skills in those three areas: Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. So we want to make sure that we've given you those tools early on, not only to help you, not only to help them, but also to make you cruise more easily through your course load here at Dean College with another tool that will help you please your professors with your results and your efficiency. Okay? I'd like you to think of Microsoft Excel as being like an iceberg. As you may know, the smallest part of an iceberg is what you see above the surface of the ocean. The bulk of the iceberg, the largest part, is under the surface. So if you know a little bit about Excel, the part above the surface, that puts amazing power into your hands to help you through courses such as your accounting courses, such as your finance courses, which you might study with me, and your statistics courses that you might study with Dr. Fishbein or our math department. So our goal is to step you through the basics and give you a lot of power to accomplish that, both as a student, then as an intern, and then certainly as an employee entering the workforce. Okay? I'll pause for just a moment. Okay, let's begin. As you might see in front of you, I hope you see in front of you, I've loaded up a basic spreadsheet, a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Now we call them files, we call them spreadsheets, they are called workbooks. Sometimes we call them a matrix, matrices, the plural, but it looks like this. Now, you all know from your high school studies that you can express things in terms of an X, Y graph. This file that you see in front of you reduces down to nothing more than that, and yet the power is immense. Now, I don't want you to be intimidated by everything you see up here in the corner that I'm indicating with my cursor. I'm just mousing around those symbols. Okay, there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of power up here in this toolbar you see at the very top. Right now, I'd like you to stick with the basics, just what you see in the middle here of this workbook. You see columns, A through a far right alphabet number, okay? Those are all the columns, and you see rows way down here, 1 through several hundred. This is an immense file. And we can even go beyond those borders, but we'll talk about that later. I want you to stick with two dimensions right now: the vertical columns and the horizontal numbered rows. Okay? All right, now you can see that I'm moving around here. Right now, see that little cross? All right, that's my cursor. And I've highlighted cell now. Everything that you see here in these little grid boxes, that's known as a cell. Okay, so right now I am on cell C4. Now what Microsoft Excel is going to do is it's going to allow you to put contents into every one of these many cells that you see in front of you. On one page, like you see here, there are thousands of them. You can put things into them like words. You can put numbers, and you can put mathematical formulas. Okay? So our goal is going to be to create a spreadsheet, as we call them generically in business. And that's all that Excel is. The great power of Excel is what you can do with those numbers once they are in these boxes. So at any point during this recording, ladies and gentlemen, you can turn me off and you can call up a workbook or a file, whatever you choose to call it, on your own, and you can play with it. You can't hurt anything. Just mouse around, follow what I'm doing. You can rewind me and replay me if you wish, or you can fast forward me if I say something you already know, because you may already be familiar with some of the functions of Excel. Okay? I'm just going to pause for a moment, and if you want to play around and try scrolling around and experimenting with these cells, feel free. Okay, let's resume. When you first click on Excel to open it, it may say, what do you want to open? And you will say a blank worksheet or a blank workbook. Now I'm using Excel version 2008. You may be using a higher version, but they all essentially do the same thing, at least at this point of our discussions together on the basics of Microsoft Excel. So let's stick with this one, please. Okay, now I can mouse around. I'm clicking my mouse, left clicking. Now I'm in cell B6. Now I'm in cell D7. Okay. If I come up to the head of any one of these columns, I can click on it and highlight, that's highlighting that we call it, the entire column. I can click on any row number, and now my entire row 5 is highlighted. I can do things with highlighted rows. We'll get to that later. Let's worry about what we're going to put in individual cells for now. Now, if you're good with the keyboard, there are many keyboard shortcuts available to us. Right now, I'm not using my mouse. I'm using the arrow keys on my keypad. Okay? So you can do that. I will get to some of the other functions, again, as I said, later on. Okay, so now let's look at what we can put in some of these cells. We can put text, okay? This is my name. Alan S. Adams. That's known as a text entry. So inside a cell, you can put text. Inside a cell, you can put numbers. Pick a number, any number. Every time I put in a number and hit enter, you'll notice that it appears. Okay? Now the thing is about Excel, I can do things with those numbers. The thing I love about Excel, even though I work in the world of finance, is that, let's face it, sometimes mathematics can be a bit intimidating, especially when you're just starting a course on them, okay? I've been in finance for 40 years, and once in a great while, I can still, believe it or not, find numbers a little bit daunting. So anything that will take the burden off my shoulders is very valuable. On top of that, Excel makes you very fast at it, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to take a few minutes and play around with Excel and try putting a few numbers and a few text entries into the cells and scroll around and get comfortable with it. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Now the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to give you a quick example of why Excel is so needed by the people who hire our Dean College graduates and why it's such an essential and handy and effective business tool. Okay? Let's say that you want to create yourself a budget. Now I'm just going to make these numbers up, but I want to give you some examples of the power that Excel brings to you. Okay, so you can see that my cursor right now is on cell C13. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to make a personal budget. Personal budgeting, control of your finances, a pet area of mine is very important. Okay, so let's say you're trying to budget your cash inflow and outflow for the first quarter. Okay, so I'm just going to type in January, February, March, and here I'm going to say total first quarter. How's that? Now I can make these letters, these fonts look very, very fancy. I can use colors, I can use elegant scripts. Let's stick with the basics for now. I'll show you how to do all that later. In a higher level of study, when you're learning the material for a higher badge. This first badge is going to be for the basics, and a good badge it will be, okay? So, when you're putting a budget together, what do you want to know? Well, you want to know where your money comes from. You want to know where your money goes to. So why don't we put in a couple of examples? Let's say net income. That's going to be the pay that your boss gives you, okay? That's how much you take home, that's your take-home pay. All right, now let's start listing a few expenses. Okay, and I'm going to head that up, expenses. I'm just typing right into those cells and hitting the Enter key. All right, what are a couple of the basics? How about rent? How about utilities? How about food? And you notice I'm inserting the space there. I like things nice and neat, okay? So I headed this up with expenses. Now I'm using rent, utilities, food, any other expenses you can think of. How about clothing? And one of my personal favorites, other. All right, and then now this is a hyper simplified budget, of course. Okay, so let's keep it nice and easy and assume that those 5 categories are our only items. All right, oh, let's not forget the basics of finance. In finance, you always pay yourself first. So I'm going to add one for savings. Okay. At the end, what do we have? Either we have a surplus or a shortfall. Either you have enough cash to meet your budget or you don't. And you have to stop finding ways to trim, adjust, and make it work. So why don't we call this surplus shortfall? If it's a negative number, it will be a shortfall, of course. We don't want to see a negative number. I want to be able to take my income, subtract all my expenses, and have something left over. Okay? All right, very good. Rent, month of January. I'm just going to put random numbers in here. $1,000 per month. Again, I'm just making this up as I go. Utilities. How about your landlord says you pay $100 a month? Now what I'm doing, friends, is I am entering numbers and either hitting the Enter, sometimes called a return key, or I am just hitting the arrow. I've got an arrow key here. Microsoft Excel is going to, when you hit Enter, is going to move you downward one cell. I don't want to go down. I want to go across. Okay? So I'm going to put in food. How much food? Oh, let's say $70 a week. How about 140 a week? I mean per month. I beg your pardon. No, that's not good enough. Let's 70 times. Let's put in a nice round $200. Okay. I'm just hitting the arrow key and moving to the right. 200 again. And March has an extra week. You know what I'm going to do? I want to make March $250. Let's put a little safety area away there. Clothing. Well, I'm going to ease up a little bit on clothing. I'll put in 50, maybe 60 for February because I want to look really nice for Valentine's Day. And March, I don't know, I'll revert to being my own sloppy self. Let's call that $50, okay? Other, I'll put in some safety money. Let's call it 40, 40, and 40. And by the way, friends, whenever you're messing around with a workbook like this, do me a favor, make sure you save it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and click on Save. You see that little symbol right there? It's very common to all of Microsoft's products, so you should be familiar with it by now if you know Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint. I click on Save, and now it's going to bring up the usual window to ask me how I want to save it. Right now it's defaulting, as you can see, to Workbook 2. That's something that Microsoft Excel has placed on it. I really don't want to call it Workbook 2, so I'm going to come over to my Dean area where I store everything for Dean College, and I'm just going to save it to that area. I'm going to rename it. Now just come up in here, up to the Save As window, and I'm going to call it Alan's Worksheet. I like to put the date. I'm typing this for you on December 1st of 2016. So that will be my file name. Call it a workbook, call it a matrix, call it a file, anything you like. From a computer point of view, I've now created a file, and I can call that file back at any time. Okay, savings. My motto is always pay yourself first. I'd like to save maybe $20 a week. So in January, that'll be $80. And in February, March has an extra week, so let's make March worth $100. Okay. That's everything. So I'm going to come here to cell A24. I'm going to scroll over a couple of spaces. I just hit the space bar a few times. And I'm going to say total expense. Let's make it plural, expenses. I hit return, there it is. All right. So now, here's what we're going to do, friends. Up until now, everything that we've entered is text like that. Now I'm holding my left mouse key and moving it and dragging. That's how I'm highlighting those cells. Okay? Because remember, I can highlight one cell, a column, a row, or I can highlight a cell, hold my left mouse key down, and move my mouse, and lo and behold, look what happens. Now I can do things to those highlighted areas. I'm not going to do them now. I'll do those later, or another professor in this course of badging will do it later. But the point is, I want to let you know how you highlight. Okay. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to take a total of each one of these columns, January, February, and March. Okay. So total expenses. Here's the first time we've used what's known as a function. Okay. Now there are many ways to input the function that says take everything from cell C18 to cell C23 and add it up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here. Now you see that? That's the Greek letter capital sigma. Sigma. Sigma means, in mathematical terms, total. In other words, total something up. I'd like to total all those cells up, C18 through C23. So I'm going to place my cursor in cell C24. That's where I want the results to be. I'm going to come up here and click on that sigma. Now watch this. Now you see what Excel just did? Excel is a very intuitive program, not only for you, but for itself. Excel just assumed that I wanted to take C18 and C23 because it saw a bunch of mathematical values there. And it's asking me, do you really want to place the total of that in cell C24? The answer is yes, I do. Now this, what you see right here, now we haven't hit the enter key yet, friends. So we're ready to hit enter, and when we do, it's going to place this, what you see right there, in cell C24. Doesn't mean you have to live with it. You can change it. You don't have to accept that. The computer is offering it to you. Okay? But what this formula says is equals. When you type in an equal, that's your way of telling Excel, I'm about to tell you how to deal with a number or a formula. This is a formula, not a number. So it's saying sum. That means add up from one point to another. Okay? And it's saying colon, that means to C23. So sum everything in cells C18 to C23, and you'll notice that is in parentheses. Okay, how do you know that? How are you supposed to know that? Well, number one, for the simple functions, I am going to tell you. But for the more advanced functions, of which there are hundreds, we see a little thing up here called help. Okay? You can consult help anytime. It's going to show you all the formulas you can use. Now you're going to the iceberg that's below the water. We don't want to go there yet. We want to keep it easy because just knowing the part of the iceberg above the water is going to be so helpful to you and give you so much power. Let's keep going. Okay? So I'm going to take a deep breath, make my leap of faith, and hit the enter key. Boom. Okay. The total of everything from here to here totals to 1,470. Now let's notice something. I want you to come way up here. This is called the contents bar. That bar tells you what is in the cell you're looking at. Okay? So if you put your cursor right there on 1470 on cell C24, it's telling you up here what's in it. It is the sum equals sign formula. It is the sum of parens C18 to C23. Now you can use this as an editing bar. You can click on anything in there and change it. Okay? Now we're going to do February. Now you know what? Let's say, oh, Alan, that sum function, that's a little bit tough for me at this point. Can we keep it a little simpler? Sure. I'm going to click the equals sign because I want to put a formula in cell D24. It's going to be the sum of D18 through D23. I am using my arrows, friends. I'm coming up here to 18. I hit the plus sign. D19, plus sign. See what it's doing. I'm scrolling up each time. I haven't hit enter yet. Don't hit enter. Okay. And finally, D23, and I hit enter. 1480. Look what's in this bar up here. Just what I typed. Now, do you want to type all that? Isn't that inefficient? Please remember, friends, business is about efficiency. Time is money. If there's a shortcut around, a good shortcut, we are going to take it. I would much rather use that formula, the one that's living in cell C24, than go through all the effort and running the risk that I make a mistake, by the way. That's in D24. Okay? So let's go back to doing it the first way. I want to put in cell E24 the total of E18 through E23. By the way, there are several ways you can do this too, but I'm going to stick with one for now. I come up here and click on that big sigma that says Auto Sum. It's highlighting what it thinks I want. I love it. I'm just going to take it. And the total is 1540. All right. So you have, for each one of the months in your budget, ladies and gentlemen, the total. Okay? What I would like you to do now is take a moment and go play with this. Put in numbers of your own. By the way, let's assume that your rent is going to go up to $1,050 in March. I'm going to change it. Now watch that number in cell E24 very carefully. It changed. Get the idea? Excel is going to allow you to create a huge matrix, just like you see here. Huge. I don't care how large it is, as long as it fits on one of these pages, and you change one number, everything that refers to that cell will change. That's one little glimpse of the power that Excel gives you. Okay? I'm going to pause for a moment. Please play with it a little bit. Okay, I'm back. Now, those are all our expenses, and we want to make sure that how much money we're making will cover it. Let's say, for example, that you want to move out. You want a place of your own. You don't want to live with your parents or your relatives anymore. So you're analyzing all the items that you're going to be responsible for, and you've narrowed it down to these. Now you want to say, can I afford to live on my own? That means you have to compare these expenses, including savings, don't forget that, to how much money you are making. So you're going to look at the job market, you'll get an offer, and to your great joy, you find that an employer is planning to pay you $1,650 a month take home. That means that He or she will probably pay you more like $1,800 or $1,900 a month for starters. But the point is, after taxes, as you learned in your accounting courses, okay, your net income, the check that you take home, will be less. So let's say that you do all the math and the number is $1,650. I'm going to put it in each one of these cells, just as you see here. Okay? This is cash in this column, ladies and gentlemen. And in these columns, that is cash out. Okay, now I want to say, am I gaining or losing? So it's simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and take my net income, money coming in, and compare it to the money going out. And I want the difference to be portrayed on line 26 for each month, C, D, and E. Okay? So what I do is I hit the equal sign. Make a note. You can hit the plus sign as well. It will still work. Hit either the equal sign or the plus sign. And now I'm going to use my arrows. I could use my mouse as well. I like using my arrows. I'm going to come up here. Now you see how that little box is highlighted and flickering? Okay, that means I'm in the middle of expressing a formula by going and finding cells that will be included in it. Okay, so I take my $1,650. I want to subtract my expenses, so I'm going to hit the minus sign. And I subtract my total expenses. My income minus my expenses is 180 bucks. All right. I'm going to do the same thing for here and for here, March. You'll notice I hit the plus sign there, not the equal sign. That's a bad habit. All right, they will do the same thing. When you're entering a formula, hitting equal or plus tells the computer you're about to enter some math. Okay? There we go. You will notice in all three cases, look at that contents bar up here. It's C15 minus C24, D15 minus D24, E15 minus E24. Okay? Now, that's a lot of work, isn't it? Later on, as you earn more badges, we're going to show you shortcuts. Let's assume you had a whole year there. You had 12 columns, plus a column for the total year. Do you want to keep typing 12 formulas? No, you don't. So once we get beyond our basic badge for this, let's call it our module, this skill module, you will learn how to take shortcuts to mass produce all the formulas in a snap. It's so easy. Okay? All right, very good. Let me do one final thing with you before we conclude this presentation. What we want to do is we want to say, what is the total first quarter? Okay, so that means I want to add up everything for January, February, and March. I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'd like you to experiment with that and see what you can do. See if you can find the formulas to achieve everything in column F. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Here's how it happens, ladies and gentlemen. If I want to total up these three cells, C15, D15, and E15, how would you do that? Well, you tell the computer, I would like to sum them up. I can do it in two ways. I can say, take that, I hit the plus key, that, plus key, that, and put the result there. Okay? I can do it a much easier way, and I like easy. Okay? So I'm just going to hit the delete key and get rid of that 4,950. All right, instead, I'm going to say AutoSum, sigma. The computer thinks I want to sum up, equals, sum, parens, C15 through E15, close parens. My answer? Oh yes, keep my life easy, please. There it is, 4,950. Okay? I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do the same thing for my rent. AutoSum. Okay? And same thing, AutoSum. All right, now look, we have something interesting just happened. I just hit the escape key. Something just happened. I put my cursor in F20, and I wanted to add these three cells together. The computer thinks it knows what you want to do, but it's not always accurate. So you got to watch it. What happens is this. I put my cursor in F20. I hit AutoSum. Whoa, it thinks I want to add together cell F18 and F19. I don't want to do that. I want to add together C20 through E20. What do you do in a case like that? I'm going to override the computer, ladies and gentlemen, with my mouse. I'm going to come over here to cell C20, the first one I want to sum. I'm going to click my left button and I'm going to hold it down and I'm going to drag it. Now, did you see what just happened with the formula? Okay, it changed to C20 through E20 by my mousing over it and dragging. The computer is intuitive. It thinks it might know what you want, but it doesn't know for sure. You know that. So you always have the ability to override it. What if that formula came out wrong? Well, you can delete it and start over, or you can edit it, and that will be a subject in the next module, your next badge. Okay? And we'll do the same thing here, and let's see what happens. It's doing the same thing, so I'm going to highlight the numbers I do want. I click it again. I don't want the numbers above, I want the numbers from left to right. I do it again. Guys, there is a much easier way to do this, and I will show it to you, or another professor will show it to you. But please, for now, just bear with me, okay? I'm going to highlight those numbers. Okay. Now, here we have a little interesting thing happening. I need to know my total expenses for the entire quarter. So I can either add those three values together, or I can add all of those values together, or I can do both. All right? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add all these values together. So I put my cursor in F24 and click my mouse. There it is. Notice something, by the way. If you really have sharp eyes, you will have noticed that whenever you're in a cell, its location is mapped up here in the upper left. Okay? Keep that in mind. We'll deal with that in another module and how to use it. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to take all of those values and sum them and place the total in F24. I'm going to click Auto Sum. Oh, the computer, this time it's right. I hit Return. All right. Now, you might be a skeptic and you might say, Alan, do those numbers really add up to 4540? Well, if I did everything right, these numbers should add up to 4540. So if you really want to check it, I'm going to click Auto Sum, and I'm going to take these three numbers and see what they equal. Success. Okay. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude the first module, I'm going to say, well, okay, for the entire first quarter, I made $49.50, and I put money aside or spent it of $45.40. What is the difference? Okay? What do you do? Think about it. Okay? Equal sign. Arrow. The muscle work too, but I'm using arrows. $49.50 minus $45.40, and I hit the Enter key. $410. Did it work? I don't know. I'm just going to check it. I'm going to stick my cursor down here. I just randomly picked a cell. Here, let's pick this one. H29. And just to make sure that 410 is accurate, I'm going to say auto sum those three numbers, and instead of subtracting down, I'll add across, and it worked. I'm going to hit delete and get rid of that 410 because it's sticking out there and ugly, and your future internship sponsor or employer or professor is going to want to see a neat spreadsheet. So let's clean it up. Okay? This, ladies and gentlemen, is your introduction to spreadsheeting / Excel / Matrix 101. Okay? What I will do is I'm going to put together a little test for you, a little self-exam, and upon completion of that exam, when you submit it, that will lead to your first badge. And from there, ladies and gentlemen, the sky is the limit. The power that will place in your hands is going to be something of deep value to you in your career. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.